Welcome to the Explainer. So, we're going to tackle a question that I think a lot of us are quietly asking ourselves. Are all these incredible AI tools we're using every single day actually making us, well, dumber? Let's get right into it. All right, let's just rip the Band-Aid off and get straight to it. This is the big fear, isn't it? That nagging feeling that the more we lean on these super smart AIs, the more something essential inside of us kind of starts to fizzle out. So is this just paranoia, or is there actually something to it? Well, it turns out it's not just in our heads. The source material we're looking at today points to some pretty serious research it's starting to paint a bit of a worrying picture. We're talking about what actually happens inside our brains when we use AI. This isn't about feelings anymore. This is about hard data. Okay, so get this. A major study out of MIT had people do some writing tasks. Some of them got to use ChatGPT, some didn't. And the results, whoa, they were pretty startling. The folks using the AI didn't just produce lower quality writing over time, their brains literally showed less neural activity. They were just copying and pasting. They were outsourcing the hard work of, thinking. And you really have to wonder, what's the long-term effect of your brain just powering down like that? So that data looks pretty bad for AI, right? Case closed? Well, not so fast. Because if we just stop there and blame the tech, we're totally falling into a trap. And we miss the other half of this story, which honestly is way more revealing. I mean, listen to this. This is such a powerful idea. The core argument is that no tool, no piece of software can just take a genuinely curious, alert mind and turn it into mush. If you're someone who already questions things, who likes to dig deeper, you're not just going to stop doing that because a new tool comes along. And that leads to this. This is the real kicker right here. AI isn't the criminal in the story. It's the spotlight. It doesn't create bad habits or lazy thinking. Nope. It just finds whatever's already there inside of us and blasts it with a giant high-wattage spotlight for the whole world to see. It's an amplifier. And this right here breaks down that amplification effect perfectly. So on one side, you've got the mind on autopilot. This is the person who's just looking for the path of least resistance, right? They want a correct-looking answer fast. For them, AI is like a dream come true. It makes it so easy to just slide into dependency. But then you've got the reflective mind. For this person, AI is totally different. It's like a sparring partner. The AI's output isn't the final answer, it's just the starting point, raw material to be questioned, poked, and prodded. The tool doesn't change them, it just exposes who they already were. Okay, so to really understand how this amplification works, we need to talk about a concept called cognitive offloading. It sounds a little academic, but trust me, it's something you do every single day. Yeah, see? It's really just a fancy term for using an external tool to do some of the mental heavy lifting for you. We do this to free up space in our own brains. And this is not some new futuristic thing. Humans have been doing this forever. I mean, just look at how this has evolved. It started with something as simple as writing down a to-do list so you don't have to remember it. Then we got things like calculators or GPS in our cars. We offloaded doing math or memorizing routes. But now, look at generative AI. The scale is it's on a whole other planet. We're not just offloading a simple task anymore, we're offloading the entire process of thinking, from coming up with an idea to writing the whole thing out. And that massive leap in power forces us to a crossroads. It basically creates two totally different paths for how we can use this thing. We can use it as a kind of smart assistant, or we can let it become a total replacement for our own brain. The source material has this absolutely perfect analogy for this. Think about going to the gym. Smart offloading is like using one of those weight machines. It supports you, it lets you lift heavier and safer than you could on your own, but you are still doing the lifting. You're getting stronger. Then there's stupid offloading. That's like sitting on the bench, watching the machine lift the weights all by itself, and then you stand up and tell everyone how strong you are. See the difference? Okay, so let's apply that directly to AI. It becomes crystal clear, right? Smart offloading is when you let the AI handle the grunt work, the tedious stuff, so that your brain is freed up for the really tough, important questions. But stupid offloading, that's when you hand over the core of the job, the questioning, the analyzing, the actual thinking part. You're outsourcing the very thing that makes you smart in the first place. And that just boils everything down to this one simple question, doesn't it? Are you the thinker Or are you just the file manager? Every time you type a prompt, you're making that choice. Are you the pilot using an advanced autopilot? Or have you just handed over the controls completely and demoted yourself to fetching coffee? Which brings us to our final and maybe most important section. The question isn't if you use AI. I mean, that ship has sailed. The real question is how. What parts of the thinking process are you deciding to give away? Because, thinking isn't just one single thing that happens in a flash. It's a cycle. It's a process. First, you have to actually understand something. Then you have to express your own take on it. After that, you have to evaluate if your idea is even any good. And finally, you revise it. That loop, that's the engine of all learning, of all real intelligence. So, let's bring it all home. The real question isn't, does AI make us stupid? The question is, in that critical chain of events, which link are you keeping for yourself? Which parts of that cycle have you decided are, well, no longer your job? And the answer to that question, that tells you everything you need to know.
Okay, so let's break down this big idea, algorithmic authority. Think about it. When your GPS tells you to turn left, you just turn left. You treat its output as the correct thing to do, even though there's no single person you can point to and say, "You told me to go this way." It's authority without a face.
Now, this isn't totally new. For years, we've had this gut feeling that whatever's on the first page of Google is probably more correct, right? But generative AI has put this whole thing on steroids. Now, instead of just a list of links, we get this fluent, confident voice that can give you a convincing answer to pretty much anything you can think of.
And here's where it gets dangerous. This new, super convincing voice plays directly into some of the oldest shortcuts in our brains. It's like a perfect storm of shiny new tech meeting our ancient cognitive biases. First up, our brains love things that sound smooth. When an AI spits out a response that's well-written, articulate, and just flows nicely, our immediate reaction is, wow, that sounds smart, it must be true. We automatically connect that fluency with credibility. Then there's confidence. The AI presents information with zero hesitation. There are no ums, no I think, no self-doubt. And our brains see that unwavering confidence and immediately mistake it for correctness. We just assume it must be right. And finally, there's the sheer breadth of it. Because it can talk about quantum physics one second and 14th century poetry the next, we get this false sense that it must actually understand all of it. We mistake its ability to generate text for genuine comprehension. So you mash these three biases together, especially when you're tired or in a hurry, or maybe you just don't know much about the topic. And it all boils down to this one very human and very dangerous little thought. This is probably right. And that one thought, it's probably right, kicks off this chain reaction. We start to offload the hard work of thinking. First, we stop checking the sources. Then, we stop asking if there's another way to look at the issue. And finally, we stop using our own gut check to see if the answer even makes sense in the real world. You see, this is so much bigger than just getting a fact wrong. We are outsourcing the very power to decide what is true. And that raises a really scary question. When that AI-generated truth turns out to be wrong, who's on the hook for the consequences? Let's make this really concrete. Think about a doctor who follows an AI's treatment plan that misses a critical drug interaction, or a journalist who publishes an AI-generated summary that completely misrepresents a scientific study, or a teacher who uses exam questions from an AI that are just plain wrong. In all these cases, who takes the blame? And this gets right to the heart of the problem. You can't put an algorithm on trial. You can't have the AI take the stand in court. It's not going to show up and apologize to anyone for the mistake. Because at the end of the day, the responsibility always comes back to the human. It comes back to the person who chose to accept that algorithmic authority without asking the tough questions. The person who handed over their responsibility to think critically. This puts every single one of us at a fork in the road. We have a fundamental choice to make. Are we going to use this technology to extend our thinking, to see more possibilities and sharpen our own judgment? Or are we going to use it to escape from thinking, to avoid the hard work of forming our own conclusions? And that big choice really boils down to a few very personal questions. The first one is this. Am I asking AI to help me see more, to broaden my perspective? Or am I asking it to just speak for me, to tell me what's right? And the second question is just as important. Am I treating the AI's output like a proposal? A suggestion that I still have to weigh and judge for myself? Or am I treating it like a final verdict, an order that I just have to obey? The difference between those two is, well, everything.
So what's the solution here? It's not some new app or a better algorithm. It's actually something deeply personal. It's a form of what you could call human resistance. It's about consciously deciding to keep a part of your mind, a zone of your own thinking, that you absolutely refuse to outsource to a machine. And look, this resistance doesn't have to be some huge dramatic act. It's the small stuff. It's sitting with an uncomfortable idea for 10 minutes without immediately asking an AI to explain it away. It's struggling with a difficult paragraph in a book on your own before you ask for a summary. It's using AI to check a fact in a debate, but never to decide your actual position.
You see, this is a total flip in mindset. The goal isn't just about having an answer anymore. The real goal, the thing that actually matters, becomes the process of verification itself. It's about owning how you got to the answer.
When you protect that little space for your own thoughts, it gives you the room to ask much better questions. You can actually pause and ask yourself, what do I really need right now? Is it just a quick answer, or is it a whole different way of seeing the problem?
You know, in a world that is absolutely obsessed with speed, maybe the most powerful thing you can do is just slow down. Not because you're lazy, but because you respect that a real thought needs time and space to grow. That ability to slow down is the clearest sign of a mind with real depth.
Which brings us all the way back to that huge, looming question that you hear everywhere these days. Is AI making us stupid?
But maybe, just maybe, that's the wrong question. What if AI isn't making us lazy? What if it's just a giant mirror that's exposing an intellectual laziness that's been there all along?
It's a mirror so big and so clear that we can't ignore our reflection anymore. It forces us to look at our own habits and to consciously choose how we want to think. So the real final question isn't about the AI, it's about you. When you look in that mirror, what do you see?
AI-ifying everything. It feels like that's all we hear about. It's this absolute frenzy. But you know, in the middle of all that chaos, some people are starting to pump the brakes and ask a really important question. Is there a smarter way to do this? And that's our first big topic here, the AI rush. You see it everywhere, this race to automate anything and everything. But a different path is starting to show itself. And look, this isn't about throwing out our tack or rejecting progress. Not at all. It's about being more mindful, more thoughtful about how we bring it into our lives. Okay, so what does this different path actually look like in practice? Well, it's all about taking a new stance. It's about finding that middle ground, something beyond the simple black and white choice of either fighting AI or worshiping AI.
First off, let's be clear, this is not about being anti-technology. We're not talking about becoming modern-day Luddites, ready to smash the servers. AI is here, it's a reality, and honestly, just trying to fight it is a battle you're probably going to lose.
But on the flip side, it's also not about putting AI up on a pedestal. It's so easy to fall into that trap, right? To see it as this all-knowing oracle, this new tech god that has all the answers. We got to resist that urge.
So if it's not an enemy and it's not a god, what is it? Well, this new stance sees AI as a partner for dialogue. It's a tool, a really powerful one that we have to understand, use wisely, and, this is key, keep in its proper place.
And this quote just sums it up perfectly. It's a mindset, right? I use AI to expand my capacities, not to escape the responsibility of being a thinking human. It's about using it to get better, not to get lazy. This whole idea, protecting our own ability to think, that brings us to the absolute core concept here, cognitive dignity. So what is it? Think of it as a set of principles, a framework for how we can hold on to our own thought processes in an age where it's just so easy to let a machine do it for us.
Okay, so let's look at these principles. They're kind of like a guide. The main takeaway, the big message, is this. You are the final authority. It means you choose deep understanding, even if it's slow, over just getting a fast answer. It even means embracing a little bit of that mental friction, that struggle, because that's where the real thinking actually happens.
Let's dig into that a little more, this idea of answers versus understanding. I mean, AI is amazing at giving us answers, right? They're instant, they're clean, boom, there it is. But real understanding? Whoa, that's a whole different animal. It's slow, it's messy. It means you have to sit with the questions for a while, not just type in a command to make them go away. And the most important thing is not to confuse the two. So, if we let AI handle all the quick and dirty, superficial stuff, what's left for us? What's our job? Well, that leads us to this really interesting concept called the new privilege. It's all about rethinking what makes us valuable as humans when AI can do so much.
And this new privilege, it's not about who has the fastest computer or the fanciest AI model. No way. It's about a quality of your mind. It's the ability to see the big picture, to ask the right questions, and, this is huge, to take full responsibility for the final call. This chart here breaks it down really well. Think about work having two layers. First, you've got the expressive layer. This is stuff like writing clean sentences, summarizing a long document, making an image. AI is great at that. But then there's the orienting layer. And that's all us. That's defining the problem in the first place, taking responsibility for the direction, making that final judgment call. That's where we, as humans, really shine.
I love this metaphor. It's so powerful. Think about it. AI is like a knife. A knife isn't inherently good or bad, right? It just amplifies the intention of the person holding it. AI does the exact same thing. It'll amplify our curiosity, or it'll amplify our laziness. It just makes us more of what we already are. The responsibility, it always comes back to us.
So when you boil it all down, it really comes down to a choice that each of us has to make. It's not about what the technology can do, it's about what we choose to do with it. And that brings us to the big final question here. Are we going to use it as a crutch or as a weight?
I mean, really think about that for a second. Is AI a crutch for you, something you lean on to avoid the hard work of thinking for yourself? Or is it a weight, like in a gym? Something you use to train your mental muscles, to make yourself stronger by arguing with it, checking its work, and refining your own ideas.
And that begs the next question. What parts of ourselves are we actually offloading? Are we just handing over the boring, repetitive stuff? That's one thing. But are we going further? Are we outsourcing something deeper, like the act of questioning, of challenging our own assumptions, of figuring out what we actually believe?
This is a real challenge for all of us. Do we have the guts to carve out a space in our own minds, a zone of thought that's just for us, a place where no one, not even AI, is allowed to take over, a place where we're okay with things being slow and a little uncertain just because we value the act of thinking for ourselves? Because that slow, difficult space, that's where the magic happens. That's where understanding is really born.
And so, we're left with this ultimate question. In a world that makes it incredibly easy to just hand everything off to a machine, what, in all of this, are you going to stand up and be responsible for? What part of your thinking will you own no matter what? Answering that, well, that's the real challenge of living in the age of AI.